When we picture the Berlin Wall, we usually imagine a massive, impenetrable concrete fortress that sprang up overnight. But before 1961, Berlin was a single bustling city, divided only on paper by two completely different economic systems, the capitalist West and the socialist East. You could ride a train right across this invisible boundary. East Berliners routinely commuted to the West to earn a stronger currency, while West Berliners crossed into the East for cheap haircuts and groceries. Both systems tried to outdo the other. In the West, streets like Kurfürstendamm were filled with crowds, glowing neon signs, and shop windows packed with name-brand consumer goods. The East answered with Stalinallee, a massive boulevard lined with the strict, imposing symmetry of socialist classicism architecture. This open side-by-side comparison made the differences between the two economies obvious. Seeing the opportunities and higher wages in the West, East Germans began leaving their side of the city in massive numbers. On the morning of August 13, 1961, Berliners woke up to find their city physically sealed off, instantly splitting families and neighbors who lived just across the street. This original barrier was crude. It was little more than torn-up infrastructure, loose coils of barbed wire, and dug-out tram tracks that stopped travel completely. The East German authorities officially claimed these barricades were built to protect their nation. In reality, they were erected to physically lock their own workforce inside the country. Over the next decade, that loose wire evolved. To understand how effective it became, we have to look at its final 1975 iteration, a highly engineered machine designed specifically to trap and kill anyone trying to cross. Imagine standing on the eastern side of this border in 1975, looking out toward West Berlin. The first thing you encounter is a simple concrete wall. Its main purpose is psychological deterrence. It blocks the exact layout of the actual fortifications from view, making it nearly impossible for a citizen to plan a safe escape route. As this diagram shows, scaling the first barrier drops you onto Stalin's grass, hidden mats of steel needles meant to pierce your feet. If you keep running, you hit a signal fence. Scaling it presses the barbed wires together, instantly tripping a silent alarm system. That alarm alerts soldiers stationed in 24-hour watchtowers. With clear sightlines over the entire strip, these guards had strict orders to shoot on sight. The entire first half of this border zone relies on invisible threats, ensuring an escapee is either severely injured or detected before they even realize what they are up against. The East German government didn't build this complex network of traps all at once. They developed it over years, reacting to early architectural flaws that desperate citizens exploited. In the early 1960s, the border ran straight through established neighborhoods. Authorities forced residents out and bricked up the windows of apartment buildings that directly faced the west. Sometimes they missed a window. In August 1962, Peter Fechter and his colleague, Helmut, found one such opening in a vacant building. Hoping to reach his sister on the other side, Peter and Helmut removed their shoes and crept quietly through the empty rooms, avoiding detection, until they reached the open window, overlooking the barbed wire and the border strip below. They jumped. Helmut sprinted through the gunfire and made it over the final wall. Peter froze, then finally ran, but was struck mid-air by a bullet. He fell back to the base of the wall, bleeding to death over the next 50 minutes, while a helpless crowd watched from the west. The East German authorities used this public death to calculate their next move. They systematically widened the border zone, tearing down the remaining vulnerable buildings to eliminate any cover. This brings us back to the 1975 border. If an escapee survived the signal fence and the watchtowers, they would enter the death strip, a wide, brilliantly lit expanse of raked dirt, with absolutely nowhere to hide. Some tried to smash through this zone in heavy vehicles. To stop them, engineers installed rows of welded steel crosses, designed to catch and tear apart the undercarriage of a speeding car or truck. This diagram details the final barrier facing the west. Using prefabricated concrete slabs with an L-shaped bottom, it stood securely without deep trenches. Finally, the top was capped with a smooth asbestos pipe, ensuring there was absolutely nothing for bare hands to grip. Every measurement, angle, and material choice of this final barrier was calculated to neutralize the physical limits of human desperation. Now, step completely over that barrier and look at it from the streets of West Berlin. The reality of the wall flips entirely. The East German engineers made one critical miscalculation. By making the final concrete slabs perfectly smooth and gripless, they inadvertently manufactured an ideal surface for paint. West Berliners took advantage of this design flaw. Over the years, they covered all 45,000 concrete panels of the barrier, turning the western face of the death strip into a massive open-air art gallery. Citizens used spray paint to protest, write messages, and openly mock a very government that spent decades perfecting the barrier. It was a stark physical contrast. On one side, vibrant, unrestricted expression. Inches away on the other, a militarized zone of lethal silence. Ultimately, the Berlin Wall stands as a physical admission of ideological failure. It required constant, brutal upgrades, not to keep invading enemies out, but to keep its own citizens locked inside.